Hello and welcome to the 9th episode in my series 100 Casts, in which I will be casting 100 matches of League of Legends sent in to me by people from Reddit, my viewers, my friends, whoever it is that happens to want to send me a replay of theirs. Could be you if you're somebody watching this video right now. If you do want to get your replay shoutcasted over by me, then check the description. There'll be instructions there on how to do that. Now, disclaimer, these replays I'm casting over are being casted over specifically for the purpose of my own practice. I'm trying to get better at shoutcasting so that I can pursue it as a career later on in life. And therefore, I'm not very good at it yet. I'm okay, I'm decent, I like to think, but I certainly have a lot of room for improvement, and these videos are hopefully going to be the place in which I improve. So if you see something that I'm doing wrong, a word that I say incorrectly, something wrong about a champion, or simply my diction is incorrect and I stutter or pause too often, tell me so in the comments, and I'll be sure to take it into account and try and get better. Thank you, enjoy the video. Alrighty, so let's get started with this one. We've got a blind pick match this time, which means that there is a mirror match in this game with an Ezreal on each team. The Ezreal on blue team going to be wearing the Striker Ezreal skin, though, and the Ezreal on purple team going to be in Pulsefire Ezreal, so thankfully, they've both chosen different skins, and it's going to be a bit more easy to make out which one is which. They're also going different build paths. The Ezreal on purple team, being the mid laner, is going to be going AP, buying that Doran's ring to start out with, as the other Ezreal is starting out by buying a Doran's blade, as well as a blue trinket, which is an odd choice. I don't often see anyone pick that one up early in the game, but it does give the ability to scout bushes early in the game, so it might be that blue side is looking for an invade here, blue trinket being fairly useful in an invade. The rest of blue team's comp, however, is going to be an Ahri in the mid lane and a Gragas in the top lane, Gragas being a very popular top laner nowadays, a Rengar in the jungle, and a Twisted Fate support next to that Ezreal AD carry, which is an odd bot lane combo. Twisted Fate, a support I don't see too often, though he does have the stun, and as well as that, he has some pretty decent poke with the base damage on stacked deck, as well as the long-range Q harass. The purple team also having an odd bot lane comp, or an odd bot lane support, I suppose you could say, with Heimerdinger and Jinx, and it looks like blue side is going for the invade here. The Ezreal and the TF going in solo towards the enemy blue buff. TF blocking the red card there, but not quite being able to get in range to throw it at the enemy Ezreal, who then lands a Q for a bit of harass on TF as he wanders away. Heimerdinger throwing a few wrenches at the blue side Ezreal, who just kind of ignores him and wanders past, taking a bit of damage, but nothing else really happening in that minor skirmish there at level 1 between the two teams near the purple side blue buff. The TF throwing his gold card down in an auto attack or two to leash for the Rengar, as Ezreal just throws his Q over the wall there and then goes into the lane, not wanting to miss any of that early CS. The Rengar taking his red buff first as Master Yi starts with his blue buff first. The junglers mirroring each other in terms of where they are on the map, not in terms of buffs this time. Top lane for purple team, I didn't quite get around to that when I was talking about the team comps, is a Yorick, which is an uncommon pick, but at least not in an uncommon lane, so there's something familiar in this game, even if it's in an unfamiliar package. The Yorick is going to be harassing the Gragas in top lane, but Gragas with his passive is going to be able to survive that harass pretty well with the 4% regen after every spell cast on that 8-second cooldown. The TF tossing the blue card onto Heimerdinger there, who has set himself up pretty well in that bush with 3 turrets lining the length of the second lane bush in bot lane. If the enemy bot lane wants to fight in that bush, they're going to have a tough time of doing it, as the Gragas body slams and then drops a huge barrel onto the head of Yorick in the top lane, both of them chunking the other one out for a decent amount of health. The Ezreal making use of his blue trinket there actually pretty cleverly to drop it onto the Heimerdinger in the bush and reveal the Heimerdinger's potential trap there with those 3 turrets in the bush. Heimerdinger letting a lot of harass though onto the TF, who's taking laser and auto attack after laser and auto attack from his Heimerdinger's turrets there. Gragas pushing up in the top lane, going to use his W to secure the last hit on that cannon minion. Very important that you get that one in the lane. Does give the most gold out of any of the minions, as Gragas slows the Yorick down and gets an auto attack onto him, trading the Yorick now out of mana, whereas Gragas is still sitting pretty at half of his mana bar, going to be comfortable with that scenario. As bot lane's getting pushed in by repeated rockets from Jinx, who's doing quite a bit of damage to the Twisted Fate, who is very squishy, having gone the Spell Thief's Edge and being Twisted Fate at low level. Gragas now pushed up to the top lane turret, going to be diving onto the Yorick, dropping the slow and the ignite, flashing after the Yorick's flash. The ignite tick is going to be enough to take him down as Gragas gets away with fairly low health, but doesn't go down to the ignite from the Yorick, who also burned. No, Yorick has the teleport. I'm not sure why I thought he was ignited, but he was not, in fact, as the Gragas does manage to get first blood and get out from under the tower, securing a 400 gold lead for his team and a kill for himself, as well as most likely pretty solid lead in that top lane, as he was already winning the lane without the gold advantage. He was already winning that matchup, and now with a gold advantage, it's just going to be all the more difficult for Yorick to come back from that. The Yorick does have teleport, and he uses it to get back into the lane before the Gragas can return, and is going to get some free farm there while Gragas is busy walking back from base to lane. That is the downside of going Ignite rather than teleport as a top laner nowadays. You are left a little bit in the lurch as far as farm goes, because you can certainly lose out to someone who is able to instantly get back to lane, or nearly instantly, just the channel time of teleport being the only bar to them being in their base and then being in lane farming. Yorick has pushed up to the tower here, actually going pretty aggressive onto the Gragas, dropping an auto onto him as well as one of his red ghouls, doing a bunch of damage and then walking away without taking any trade back at all. The Gragas not having time to respond to that one. It's a huge minion wave for Yorick as well, so if Gragas had fought, he might have taken a bit more damage than he would have liked. He's been brought to about 4/5 of his health bar by the Yorick's harass at this point, and Yorick is already nearly half mana, so he might have a bit of trouble actually bringing Gragas all the way down to 0 and getting that kill. The Ezreal dropping his blue trinket there onto the Heimerdinger, walks a bit too close to the turret, takes a good amount of harass. Heimer throws some rockets just as Jinx throws one of her rockets out at the Ezreal. And bot lane really not going too well for the blue side, who's getting pushed under their tower constantly by the heavy harass of Heimerdinger and Jinx, who both have fairly long-range rockets and a lot of good potential to fight you if you jump onto them. The Gragas and Yorick dueling it out in the top lane again. The Gragas just happily last-hitting those ghouls that Yorick throws at him, as Yorick is sustaining off of his red ghoul. The red ghoul for Yorick, for those of you who don't know, does offer lifesteal on the cast as well as lifesteal for every time the ghoul attacks, and is Yorick's main sustain tool in lane. He has his W is an AoE targeted area, or an AoE skill shot, rather, that slows anyone in the area and follows people, slowing them down. Gragas having level 6 before Yorick does, though, does go in and knock him back with his ulti, body slamming in after landing a fairly well-charged Q, does a bunch of damage but doesn't take him out. But Ezreal, the mid lane AP Ezreal, gets a kill as he fires his ult down into the low health Ezreal in the bot lane, sniping it out under his tower, nearly taking the Twisted Fate out too. Gets a kill for himself in the mid lane, evening up the kills in the game, getting it back to 1-1, and neither team really having a gold advantage at this point, though Gragas is still winning that top lane, pushing it up pretty well, and Rengar is down here in the bot lane holding the turret after his bot laners have either died or been forced to back. Yorick now finally hitting level 6 in this top lane, going to sustain himself back up a bit by using that red ghoul and the minions. And Yorick's I don't know which ability is on which, but he has an auto attack empowered ghoul, which simply deals a bunch of damage and then will chase people down, and is much faster than his other ghouls and will do a good amount more damage than the other ghouls will as well. So that's his highest damage output ability usually, unless he maxes one of the other ones first. And Yorick's ult copies a champion, makes a copy of that champion that can auto-attack and chase people down, and he controls it. And then if the original, not the copy, if the original champion dies, they get revived for a short amount of time, unless the copy has been killed before that champion goes down. Though they only get revived for a short amount of time. It's not a true revive like Zillion's ult. And we see the bot lane dueling it out there. The Jinx getting taken quite low, but Rengar now is down here with his ult. He jumps onto the Jinx, dealing a bunch of damage to her. She nearly goes down, does in fact go down to the red buff burn after she flashes away. The Ezreal now in a duel with the Heimerdinger does take him out. That is 2 more kills for blue side. Ezreal picking up one of them, and Rengar getting the other with the red buff burn after Jinx attempts to flash away and escape, but doesn't quite have enough health to survive despite flashing out of the situation. Up in the top lane, we have Gragas and Yorick dueling it out. Gragas dropping his W and a body slam onto Yorick, trading pretty well. Yorick low on mana here, but does have a red ghoul out, sustaining for him a little bit. The red ghoul then dies, and he drops another one. Just looking to sustain up in this lane and farm. Probably going to be waiting until the late game when he can clone either Master Yi or Jinx and have essentially 2 hyper carries beating on the enemy team. And if one of them goes down, they can get revived again, unless it's the clone that goes down. In which case, no, they can't. as the blue side Ezreal ult flies up across the map, tagging the purple side Ezreal and the Yorick up in the top lane and doing a bit of damage to each one, but not taking either of them out, as they were both pretty high on health when it came through. I'm not entirely sure where that ult was aimed. Perhaps he thought one of them was lower than they actually were, or perhaps it was just an accidental press of the R button. The mid lane matchup, I haven't gotten around. Oh, well, I'll get to that in just a second as we see Master Yi coming up top. The Yorick getting ulted back, but Master Yi dodging the Gragas' ult with his Alpha Strike, going to be diving the Gragas under the tower, landing a few auto attacks, taking a ton of damage from Gragas' W, but being able to take him out, using another Alpha Strike under the tower there to avoid the tower hit that would have killed him before he took him out, and killing the Gragas, but Gragas does get the kill back as the tower finishes off the Master Yi after Gragas goes down. Down in the bot lane, Rengar running in with his ult again, and the double buffs, going to land an empowered Bolas onto the Jinx. She does not have anywhere to go right now. The Heimer drops his ult turret, but I don't think... Actually, he very well might have enough damage to take out this Rengar. No, Rengar goes down to the Ezreal ult, which comes flying down the river, as both Twisted Fate and Ezreal nearly go down to the Heimerdinger, but Ezreal flashing after the Heimerdinger who flashed away does manage to take him out, not going down to the turrets. However, Ezreal in the mid lane now does have double buffs, and is 2-0. And with that, I'll get back to what I was talking about before that gank in top lane and then the action down in bot lane, where AP Ezreal in the mid lane against this Ahri, both are actually fairly similar champions in my opinion. They both have very high burst damage and very good mobility, and so they're both sort of AP assassins looking to jump onto the enemy squishies. Yorick forced to flash here in the top lane as Gragas is belly slamming and then dropping his Q onto him, autoing him diving under the tower. Master Yi down in the bot lane, going to be swapping between targets, not sure which one to go for at this point. Going to be going nearly down. He does go down to the ult from the blue side Ezreal, as Gragas up in the top lane bit off a bit more than he could chew with that tower dive and went down to the Yorick and some tower hits. That putting some more kills on the purple side and nearly evening out the score in terms of gold, with purple side only being 1,000 behind or so at this point. Anyways, Ezreal and Ahri are both very high burst, when built AP, they are both very high burst, very high mobility mages that can do a ton of burst damage all at once, especially if the Ezreal builds a Deathfire Grasp, which is what I personally like to build on AP Ezreal, which is one of my favorite mid laners, which is why I'm bringing this up. I'm fairly partial to the champion and the build. But Ezreal's choosing to go for the Magic Pen route, getting a Haunting Guise and Sork Shoes already, which is a pretty good idea, because the base damage on Ezreal's ult is really strong, and if you build a lot of early Magic Pen, you can do a ton of damage by chunking people with that ult. And it's really useful in team fights and for sniping people out. Rengar here in the bot lane with 5 stacks of Ferocity, going to be ulting in and then jumping onto the Heimer, taking a lot of damage from the turrets though. Won't be going down though, as Heimerdinger does die to the Ezreal, who is now on a rampage. The blue side Ezreal 4-1 down, coming out of this bot lane. The purple side Ezreal doing well for himself as well, 2-0 with a good amount of CS on him. So later in the game, we're going to have to see which Ezreal build is going to take the game and which Ezreal build is going to be doing better, the AP or the AD. Ezreal getting hit by the charm from Ahri there after shifting in, taking about as much damage back as he landed onto the Ahri himself. Then those two trading even now in the mid lane. As we see Gragas in the top lane dueling it out with the Yorick a little bit. The Yorick nearly going down to... the Gragas nearly going down to the Yorick, getting quite low, but being able to escape fairly easily with that body slam. Down in the bot lane, we have Jinx low on health being pushed into by the enemy Ezreal, and the Twisted Fate going toward as Rengar is doing his red buff in the jungle, getting quite a lot of health back from that empowered W. Rengar, having built quite a lot of CDR at this point, is going to be able to get his Ferocity stacks up fairly quickly with the Ionian Boots and a Kindle Gem already on top of that Madred's. Master Yi is down in the bot lane, gets stunned by the enemy Twisted Fate, who's just around the corner and throws off a gold card. Does not actually get hit by the Jinx traps, nearly going down, nearly getting snared up there. Probably would have been the death of him. Master Yi still in the bot lane, going to Alpha Strike onto the Ezreal, gets stunned again. Heimer uses his ult and throws out the ulted turrets, the ulted rockets right into the face of TF, who goes quite low, but Ezreal goes down as an ult from the other Ezreal. On the other side of the team, on the other side of the map, the other team comes down from the mid lane and kills the TF. That is another snipe that this AP Ezreal in the mid lane has pulled off. I believe that's 2, maybe 3 in this game alone. Up in the top lane, though, Rengar's coming in for the gank. Not going to be able to jump onto the Yorick. The Yorick was a bit too far away from the bush for him to manage to do that. But the Gragas is going to be pushing up the lane, going to be body slamming into the minions to push those up a bit quicker, and throwing out his Q as well into the back line, letting it charge up a bit, and then popping it to kill all the minions in the back line. The longer you let Gragas' Q charge now, the more damage it does. For those of you who don't know that, Gragas did get recently reworked, so his Q got changed, and it now slows people and does more damage the longer it stays on the ground before exploding. It used to just do a whole bunch of damage and not have any CC attached, though it did slow people's attack speeds before, which was something that wasn't too visible and some people probably didn't know about, but it was there. It was a useful mechanic of his. Master Yi coming down to the bot lane again, getting stunned up by the TF and being forced to flash away, but Jinx and Heimer are going to keep pushing and get that tower down in the bot lane, putting a 1-for-0 turret advantage for Purple Team overall on the map now. Rengar up near the top lane again in that tri-bush over there, looking for a gank, but not being able to find one. He doesn't think he can get one here. He's going to turn away and go back towards the mid lane. TF popping his ult, going into the fight in the mid lane, going to be taking tons of damage though on arrival, nearly going down. In fact, yes, going down to the Jinx ulti and the Ezreal ulti, both flying in his direction. The Jinx getting the kill credit there, but then Jinx going down to Rengar, who must have ulted in and jumped onto her behind, because I did not see him come in at all. The camera was all over the place there during that fight. As in the top lane, again, we see Yorick now in this lane that keeps swinging back and forth between the two laners, pushing in, nearly bringing down the Gragas, popping a bunch of ghouls onto him. The Ezreal finding, the blue side Ezreal finding Master Yi doing his wolf camp is going to try and take him down, but that meditate's preventing a whole bunch of damage, but even through all that damage prevented, the Master Yi does eventually have to stop meditating and does go down to the auto attacks from the blue side Ezreal, who is building blue build Ezreal, it seems, even is going so far as to have a blue trinket. Perhaps that was why he bought it. As we see the purple Ezreal and the blue Ezreal dueling it out, the purple Ezreal arcane shifting forward and getting a ton of burst from that spell, getting the shutdown onto the blue side Ezreal. The arcane, the AP Ezreal now being 4-0. It's really confusing to cast some blind pick matches because the mirror matchups just makes it hard to tell you what's happening when those duels are happening. Like, Ezreal killed Ezreal, Ezreal shot Ezreal, Ezreal used a Q on Ezreal. It gets confusing quickly. As we see Ahri in the mid lane being pushed up by the Heimerdinger, who has a line of 3 turrets there. Ahri ulting forward into the Heimer flashing away and dodging both the Charm and the Orb of Deception, and then turning around and exhausting the Ahri, who uses the 3rd charge of her ult to leap away from the Ezreal and Heimer. The Ezreal still landing his ult, though, deals nearly a half of Ahri's health with the ult alone, and then is going to be pushing up the mid lane. One of the disadvantages that AP Ezreal has is all his W doesn't affect minions, so very few of his AP scalings are really good for clearing a minion wave. His E only targeting one thing, his W not affecting minions, and his Q not scaling too high with AP, and also only affecting one thing. As we see up in the top, Gragas and Yorick going at it, both of them popping the ult. The Yorick getting an extra copy of himself to help him duel there does take out the Gragas after going fairly low himself, but not going down, and so wins in that engagement, as the Rengar, TF, and Ezreal for blue team are all here in the mid lane. The blue side Ezreal taking a bunch of damage as the other Ezreal arcane shifts and hits him with the Essence Flux, leaping in onto him, doing a whole bunch of damage there. That's the way that AP Ezreal can be an assassin, really, because the arcane shift and the Essence Flux do a whole bunch of damage all at once, and then you press R after doing that instantly, and the ult, if you're good enough at aiming it, can do half of someone's health or more, especially if you've DFG'd them beforehand. Purple team now pushing up the mid lane. Got a whole lot of push with that AP Ezreal ulting the wave to take it out very quickly. And Yorick throwing ghouls down all the time just to harass the enemy team and give the purple team something for the tower to target so they can sneak in and get an auto here and there. Jinx trying to throw out the W there, but missing on the Ezreal, who lands his own Q onto the enemy Heimerdinger. This is the blue side Ezreal, the blue build Ezreal. I'm going to refer to them as blue Ezreal and wizard Ezreal from now on, so there's less confusion. Blue Ezreal firing his ult off in the mid lane at the enemy team, taking a bit of Wizard Ezreal's health with him, as Jinx actually gets the kill onto TF, who is dangerously low and dangerously near to a Jinx who used her ult and killed him. As Master Yi Alpha strikes in but goes down to the Ahri, the Rengar nearly going down but getting into his ult in time to be able to escape with that Shroud of Invisibility. Purple Team does get the tower though, and overall it's a 1-for-1 exchange with Purple Team picking up the tower in the mid lane, so that puts them ahead in terms of that little exchange there. As Ezreal just arcane shifting away from the Yorick there, Yorick not really being able to chase any farther because Ezreal is quite a mobile little fellow and has an Ahri to help protect him just in case things go wrong. The Ahri and Ezreal farming out the jungle on blue side there, as blue Ezreal is pushing out the mid lane again, which has gotten pushed up to the tower. Yorick up in the top lane, dropping a few ghouls onto the Gragas, but not choosing to chase him any farther than that. As the Gragas now finished his Iceborne Gauntlet, is going to be doing quite a bit of damage and also having quite a bit of tankiness against this Yorick, who does rely mostly on AD for his damage with the build he's chosen to go with. AP Yorick certainly not being the best kind of Yorick around, I think I can say that fairly definitively, as the Yorick has chosen to go with a Manamune, and is building a Triforce as well. Both very good items on Yorick. The Triforce because Yorick likes to spam his spells and will get that proc pretty much every time it comes up off the cooldown rotation. And the Manamune because Yorick does have mana issues, and it also, Yorick does very well with some AD. He's not a pure AD carry, but he does well with some. He's the bruiser. As we see blue Ezreal being jumped on by the Master Yi here, he does manage to flash away and drop his ult onto the Master Yi and the rest of Purple Team, but he does go down after taking out the Master Yi. Rengar nearly going down, but being able to flash away there with the TF behind him to help peel just in case things go wrong, in case the rest of Purple Team decides to keep chasing, but they do not. Instead, Purple Team is going to back off from this one, thinking perhaps it is a bit too dangerous to go for that dragon that they originally were down there to contest. Ahri nearly finding the kill on Jinx there, but not quite being close enough to want to risk using her ult and not getting the kill. She decides to back away without going for it. The Yorick getting ulted back under tower by the Gragas after Gragas hits him with Body Slam and a partially charged Q. Does take a lot of damage, especially from that last tower hit, and goes down fairly quickly, not having much tankiness in his build aside from that health from Phage. Does go down fairly quickly to the Gragas, giving a kill over the Gragas there, who is sitting at 3-3-0 to the Yorick's 2-2-2. Both of these players like having symmetrical scores. But it's not symmetrical in terms of towers here, as blue team is down 3 towers. Ahri ulting onto the Heimerdinger, dropping Ignite on him as Heimerdinger drops Exhaust on her. The Ahri's Ignite proving a bit more powerful than the Heimerdinger's Exhaust, though, and the Ahri getting the kill there, despite missing the charm at the beginning of the fight. Does have to burn the Ignite and her ult to get it, though, but fairly worth for a kill to use a summoner and an ult, I would say. Ahri having finished her DFG, the Ezreal has bought a Magi's actually at this point. He's going to be shifting in towards the Ahri, dealing quite a lot of damage to her. The Q does have a bit of an AP scaling, even if it's not a very high one, so it is worth throwing out, certainly, especially if you have a Lich Bane, as Q counts as an auto attack and can proc that Lich Bane proc from quite a distance, doing a lot of damage. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Ezreal, the Wizard Ezreal building a Lich Bane this time. I would be very surprised to see the blue Ezreal building a Lich Bane, as he seems to be going pretty much fully for that modified blue build now, even going so far as to get a blue trinket for himself, maybe just for the looks of it, as he's gone Essence Reaver and Manamune, and has a lot of mana and a lot of mana regen. His Q's proccing the Essence Reaver passive, but he does go down near the Dragon Pit, as most of Purple Team was surrounding him there, and he walks around the corner only to find himself faced with a Master Yi, who Alpha Striked onto him, and I believe Master Yi got the kill there, but I don't quite remember which one, but he did go down, the blue Ezreal dead for now, as Purple Team is doing the dragon, but Rengar is here in his ult, going to run and not get the Smite Steal, though. Yi gets the kill onto the dragon, smites that and takes the 25 bonus gold for himself, as well as all that extra gold for his team. TF flashing away there from the huge burst from the Wizard Ezreal, who arcane shifted in, hit him with the Essence Flux, and then threw his ult out. TF flashed the ult, or the only way you could save his life there, really, and does manage to survive, but the Flash Burn does not manage to survive, actually, as Jinx's ult comes down the mid lane and gives Jinx a killing spree, exploding in a smiley face of execution on that Twisted Fate. The Yorick now being accosted by the Rengar and the Gragas in the mid lane, turns onto the Gragas, who's low in health. The Gragas body slams away, and now the Yorick has decided to continue 1v1ing the Rengar, but it's no longer a 1v1 as Gragas flashes in the Yorick. The Yorick not managing to take them out through the amount of tankiness and CC that they have, and goes down just as his own ult runs out, so he isn't even allowed that revive function from his ult. The TF using his ult to port into the mid lane to save this turret as Ahri actually DCs there. Hopefully she'll be back soon. It's always a little bit disappointing to have a DC in the match. It sort of takes away from the action, takes away from the integrity of the game, so I really hope she comes back soon. That would be really nice to have her back in this game, as we see Master Yi walking around the map pretty fast, actually. He's decided to get those boots of mobility for himself, as well as a U-Moose, which I believe passively gives him a speed, or maybe it's only on the active. Yes, I believe it's only on the active. I don't know what I was thinking there. As Ezreal Arcane shifts in, drops his Essence Flux onto the already low health TF, and the TF just goes down instantly to that burst from the Wizard Ezreal, who is now 5-0 and has some stacks on his Magi's, most certainly. I think he got that when he was 4-0-1, so he's gotten a kill and an assist since then, so he has 3 stacks on the Magi's, I'd guess. As now he gets another 2 for himself, the Rengar walking into some Jinx traps in the bush, getting hit up by the rockets from a mad scientist Heimerdinger there, and then going down to the burst from the Ezreal's W. In the top lane, we see Yorick and Gragas dueling it out again. Gragas being forced to use his ult to knock the Yorick away, and then body slamming away to escape the Yorick, as the Gragas does manage to escape with his life fairly easily, though he did have to burn the ult there. And Yorick's ult still up, not having to have burnt it in that fight, will give him the advantage in this top lane. He also has completed his Trinity Force, so that's going to be quite a power spike for him. Right around the same time that his Mura mana was also finished, he has stacked up all those mana stacks that he needed to stack up, and now he can do quite a bit of damage by activating that, as well as getting the Sheen proc at the same time. He could probably do a whole bunch of damage with his Q active and then turning that item on for a short time. As Ahri does reconnect, that's good, we like to see that. Ezreal Arcane shifting over the Jinx ult there, probably not on purpose, but very fortunate that that happened, because he got hit by the Ezreal ult, the Wizard Ezreal ult, just before that, and so nearly went down to that combo of the 2 global ults hitting him, but he did manage to Arcane shift over the Jinx ult. Whether it was on purpose or not, I don't know. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there and say that he is a very good player and has incredible reaction times, and was, in fact, purposefully noticing that Jinx ult and was shifting over it to avoid the damage on purpose, and it was not a happy accident. The Heimerdinger turrets providing a good defense for the larger turret on Heimerdinger's team in the mid lane, as they are going to be able to hold off blue side from getting another turret there. But Rengar finds Master Yi on low health in the bush, drops the empowered bolas onto him, and then doing a bunch more damage with his Q, does manage to take him out. The Rengar, though, actually building fairly tanky, has decided to go with the team defensive item in the Aegis of the Legion there, upgrading it to the Locket of the Iron Solari already for that whole team shield and for the cooldown reduction and tankiness as well. I haven't seen a tank Rengar in a while, especially building out of the jungle, but it could certainly do well. As an Arcane shift and an Essence Flux from the Wizard Ezreal just utterly destroys the Twisted Fate, who got a tiny bit too close to the mid lane tower there, and the mid lane Ezreal more important. Ezreal then throwing another Essence Flux onto the enemy blue Ezreal, who's taken quite low by that. The Wizard Ezreal doing very well for himself, having 12 stacks on the Magi's there. The Jinx ult barely missing the blue Ezreal there as he nearly goes down. The Jinx then forced to flash away as Ahri is nearby. Ahri popping her W, and the last charge of her Spirit Rush will be able to shut down the enemy Jinx there, and then drops her Orbs of Deception across the rest of the minion wave to heal up a little bit with her passive. Might be in a bit of a trouble here, though, as the enemy Wizard Ezreal is on his way into the jungle, probably looking to intercept that low health, low mana Ahri. The Heimerdinger flashes forward, then uses his ult, but misses all of the rockets from his ulted rockets. However, Wizard Ezreal is here to seal the deal on that Ahri, and she does go down, giving a shutdown gold over to the already fairly fed AP Ezreal from purple side. The Ezreal getting hit, dropping the DFG active onto the Rengar, but the Rengar flashes out of the way of his ult and then goes into invisibility, nearly getting away. Does, in fact, get away, actually. I say that incorrectly. The Master Yi, thankfully, cannot be slowed, though, as he does go down to the blue Ezreal, who jumps into the lane with his ult, nearly doing enough damage to take out the Heimerdinger. I keep expecting these kills not to be finalized, but they do get finalized. A double kill for blue Ezreal now, as he's pushing up the mid lane with some of his team members, going to be taking some damage on that tower, but their inhibitor tower is going down to a Yorick in the top lane. This is a tragedy, really, for blue side, as they do manage to get another tower for themselves on the board, but I don't think it was worth it. Yorick here pushing onto the inhibitor, has the inhibitor at half health, does have to burn his ult, and goes into the ult passive Does he get this Rengar? The Rengar incredibly tanky with that shielding item in the Locket of the Iron Solari. Does go down eventually, but the Rengar going down to the Yorick, who gets a kill and an inhibitor turret for his troubles while blue team was busy pushing up the mid lane. They're also on an inhibitor turret, though. They might be able to get this. The Heimerdinger not able to hold them off as the Ezreal goes down to the Heimerdinger, actually, who gets the shutdown and then gets another kill onto the Gragas. Heimerdinger doing some work with that giant turret, getting a double kill for himself on the Gragas and the enemy Ezreal. And pardon me while I take a drink of water. All this action has my throat really parched. 1 second. Alright, thank you. Sorry about that. Ari getting the blue buff for herself. I'm going to be thankful for that. She is very low on mana. As we see Jinx towards the top side of the purple jungle going to be taking the red buff. This always seems to happen around 25 to 35 minutes in the game, somewhere in there after a team fight or after a large push from one or both teams. Both teams just return to their jungles, take their buffs, regroup, and start looking for another team fight, usually around the mid lane. The purple team is pinging onto the Baron, so it looks like they might want to start a fight there. Blue team doesn't have any vision on that, and purple team might know that, might not know that. But either way, they don't have vision, so purple team going to be going for this Baron now, it looks like. They're warding up behind them, getting some good vision in the area to stop blue team from coming in unexpected onto them, as Yorick and Jinx are starting the Baron. Yorick tanking it up with his ghouls. Very effective little trick there. If you drop the ghouls right on the Baron, then they can tank a few auto attacks from the Baron, and if you rotate them around correctly, it can take quite a lot of damage away from the Baron onto you and put it onto your ghouls, which allows you to do Baron much more easily, saving a lot of your health. Rengar popping into his ult here now, going to run in, but not get there in time to smite it, as Yorick actually gets the final hit on Baron Nashor. Purple team getting the purple buff now on them all, as Ezreal drops his ult across multiple members of blue team. 2 members of the purple team do go down, but Heimerdinger was ulted by the Yorick. The Heimerdinger going down, but coming back in ghost form for a little while. Ezreal flashing over the wall, Arcane shifting forward and throwing the Essence Flux out, but the blue Ezreal, Arcane shifts away just in time. Sadly though, TF was not quite as mobile as his friend Ezreal and does go down to the burst from Wizard Ezreal, as in the top lane we see Jinx and Yorick pushing up onto this exposed inhibitor. Blue Ezreal is pushing up the mid lane, oddly enough. Despite most of his team being down, he doesn't feel like he wants to defend right now. He wants to push. Maybe he's going for a desperate gambit to try and pull purple team's attention away from his base and back to their own. Maybe he's given up on the game, maybe a lot of things, but that's what he's doing. He's pushing up the mid lane. Wizard Ezreal has found him and actually goes down to the blue Ezreal, losing some Magi stacks there as he dies. But Jinx now on the Nexus for blue team. I don't think this is going to be nope, this is not going to be able to be come back from for blue team, as purple team takes the victory here. Sorry for the strange victory graphic there, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.